Welcome to Lethal Ledger, where we dive deep into crime file documentaries and podcasts. Like, subscribe, and share so the case studies can grow.
Velma Barfield, the death row grandmother. Final judgment. The ledger is open.
In today's episode, we investigate the chilling case of Velma Barfield, who was executed in North Carolina in 1984 for the crime of first-degree murder. Was it a clear-cut case of capital murder, or were there shadows of doubt that the jury never saw? From the initial 911 call to the final walk to the chamber, we break down the evidence, the trial, and the ultimate price paid. In this video, we explore
The crime scene, the investigation and arrest, the courtroom battle, deep dive, psychological profile, the execution and final words, the legacy of the case, the crime scene.
The date was November 2nd, 1984. In the pre-dawn darkness of Raleigh, North Carolina, a woman named Velma Barfield sat in a small cell, preparing to make history for all the wrong reasons. She was 52 years old, a grandmother with a soft face and a penchant for prayer. But in just a few hours, she would become the first woman executed in the United States since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. To understand how a church-going woman ended up on a gurney, we have to look at the scene of her final crime, the home of Stuart Taylor. In the late 1970s, Stuart was a widower who thought he had found a second chance at love with Velma. But by 1978, his health began a terrifying, inexplicable decline. Witnesses would later describe the scene as something out of a horror movie. Stuart didn't just get sick, he was tortured by his own body. Arsenic poisoning is a brutal way to die. It starts with a metallic taste, followed by a burning in the throat. Then the rice water stools and projectile vomiting begin, a violent purging that leaves the victim dangerously dehydrated and gasping for air. As Stuart lay there, his skin turning a sickly yellow, Velma was the picture of the devoted fiancée. She wiped his brow, she held his hand, and most importantly, she continued to offer him medicine and water. When he finally succumbed, the community mourned with her. But the local medical examiner noticed something odd. Stuart's symptoms were too violent for a simple stomach virus. When they opened his body, they didn't just find a virus. They found enough arsenic to kill a dozen men.
The investigation and arrest.
When the police began to look at Velma, they didn't just find a suspect. They found a pattern that stretched back nearly a decade. The investigation turned into a forensic archaeology project. Detectives realized that being near Velma Barfield was a significant health hazard. They began the grim process of exhuming bodies. First was her mother, Lillian Bullard. In 1974, Lillian had died in Velma's arms after a mysterious bout of vomiting. Then came Dolly Edwards, an elderly woman Velma cared for in 1977. Then Record Wild. Then John Henry Lee. As the bodies were brought back up from the North Carolina soil, the lab results were identical. Arsenic. 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 But why? The arrest revealed a secret life that none of her fellow church members knew about. Velma was a chronic shoplifter and a masterful forger. She had a crippling addiction to prescription drugs, specifically Mother's Little Helper, Valium. She was consuming massive quantities of pills every day. To pay for them, she stole from the elderly people she was hired to protect. When she realized they might check their bank statements, she didn't just stop stealing, she eliminated the witnesses. She treated human lives like loose change, spending them whenever she needed a fix.
The courtroom battle.
The trial of Velma Barfield was a national sensation. It was 1979, and the sight of a sweet grandmother in the defendant's chair was a cognitive dissonance that the public couldn't look away from. The prosecution's strategy was to highlight her calculated cruelty. They brought in experts to describe how she watched her victims suffer for days. They argued that Velma didn't kill in a fit of rage. She killed with the patience of a gardener, waiting for the poison to take root. The defense, led by lawyers who were genuinely convinced of her mental instability, argued diminished capacity. They claimed the years of Valium and Librium abuse had created a toxic psychosis. They said Velma wasn't a monster. She was a woman whose brain had been fried by legal narcotics. But then came the applause incident. During a particularly impassioned speech by the prosecutor, one where he vividly described the agony of her mother's death, Velma didn't cry. She didn't look down in shame. Instead, she began to clap. She sat in the courtroom and gave the prosecutor a round of applause as if she were a judge at a talent show. That moment, more than any piece of evidence, convinced the jury that the woman in the floral dress was a master manipulator who viewed the entire trial as a game.
Deep dive. Psychological profile.
What makes a woman poison her own mother? To understand Velma, we have to look at her childhood. She claimed to have been a victim of incest at the hands of her father, a trauma she used to explain her later detachment from reality. Psychologically, Velma fits the profile of a hero killer, or a caregiver serial killer. These individuals often have a Munchausen by proxy element to their crimes. They don't just kill for money, they kill for the status of being the grieving survivor. Velma loved the attention she got while nursing Stuart Taylor or her mother. She loved being the one the neighbors looked at and said, "What a saint she is, staying up all night with the sick." There's also the invisible woman syndrome. In the 1970s, society didn't believe women, especially older religious women, were capable of predatory violence. Velma used this stereotype as a suit of armor. She hid behind her Bible and her apron, knowing that no one would dare look at the sweet lady and see a serial killer.
The execution and final words.
While on death row, Velma Barfield became a celebrity. She claimed to have been born again and spent her time writing letters of encouragement to other prisoners. She became a cause célèbre for the anti-death penalty movement. Even figures like the Graham family were moved by her apparent transformation, but the law in North Carolina was firm. On her final night, Velma showed a strange, calm detachment. She didn't order a lavish final meal. She asked for a bag of cheese doodles and a Coca-Cola. The snacks of a casual afternoon, not a final exit. As she was strapped to the gurney, she looked at the witnesses. She was wearing pink pajamas, looking more like someone ready for bed than someone ready for death. Her final words were, "I am sorry for all the hurt that I have caused." Whether that was a genuine plea or one last performance for her audience is something only Velma knew. At 2:15 a.m., the poison she once fed to others was replaced by the legal poison of the state.
The legacy of the case.
The legacy of Velma Barfield isn't just about the first woman executed in the modern era. It's about the gaps in our perception. It's a case study in how we define evil versus illness. Was she a product of her trauma and a victim of a drug-heavy era? Or was she a predator who used the most vulnerable people in her life as fuel for her addiction? Even today, criminologists study Velma to understand the quiet killer, the one who doesn't use a gun or a knife, but a kitchen cabinet and a friendly smile.
What do you think about the case of Velma Barfield? Now I want to hear from you. Velma Barfield was the first woman executed after the death penalty was reinstated in the U.S. Do you believe her transformation in prison was genuine, or was it her final attempt at a con? And does her struggle with addiction change how you view her crimes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going. I'll be down there responding to your theories. If this deep dive into the Death Angel of North Carolina kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll be uncovering another dark chapter of true crime history. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys on the next video.